Welcome back, my name's Steve, and thank you for joining me on my photography journey today. This week I just want to reflect on having had my Nikon Z5 for a long time. I got it delivered on the 24th of September 2021, so that's kind of 19 months ago now, and I've actually used it pretty much every day since, whether that's taking pictures, whether that's editing pictures, or more recently making these videos. So I just want to kind of gather my thoughts and let you know how it's been and give kind of a long-term review as to whether I think it's been a good camera, a bad camera, and what I want to do going forwards. So I looked at the data, and as of a couple of days ago, I'd actually taken 27,000 pictures, which is a ridiculous amount. I would never have guessed that in like 19 months I'd have taken quite so many pictures, but I have. So I'm 27,000 pictures more experienced than I was 19 months ago. I've used the controls, I've edited a lot of these pictures, and I just know a lot more about photography in general than I did when I started. Now I actually have 4 lenses for this camera. I've got the 35mm f1.8, which I'm filming on currently. I've got this, which is the 24-200 f4-6.3. I've got the 24-50 f4-6.3, which is actually the lens that came in the kit with the camera when I bought it. And I've got this other one, which I've not really talked about much, but this is a manual focus 7 Artisans 35mm. And this was actually a bit of a mistake, partly because it's manual focus and partly because it's actually made for an APS-C size sensor, so DX in Nikon speak. So I've not really used it a whole lot. So just to run through these lenses, and this is my most recent lens, the 24-200mm. So it's at 24mm and f4. This is the 24-50mm kit lens that I got with my camera in the first place. Then manually focusing can be quite good fun, so that's what I'm using at the moment. This is the 7 Artisans lens, manually focus, and at f1.4, so I wonder whether I'm actually in focus or not, but we'll see. To jump kind of straight to the conclusion, I love this camera. I love these lenses, I love the whole Nikon system, but most specifically, it's the camera that I really enjoy using. Yes, I'm still very new to photography. I don't have much experience with other brands, so Sony, Canon, Panasonic, anything like that. So I don't really have anything to compare it to. But for the moment, I am absolutely happy with everything that this camera can do, everything that I've taken with it, and I know that the actual limiting factor in everything that I've done is me. It's not the camera, it's not the lenses, it's not the fact it's a Nikon rather than a Sony, it's me. So whether we're talking about the colors, the file system, the menus, the format that it's saved in, anything like that, Nikon works for me. It's part of my workflow now. I've got used to it and everything just works, which is all I could ask. It makes my life as easy as possible, being able to just grab my camera and get out and take pictures. Let's take a look at some of these pictures that I've taken, some of the 27,000. I'm not going to make you sit through all of them. Let's choose a few of them and have a quick look at them and just see how things have changed since my very first pictures up until the ones that I've been taking in the last few days. And we'll see if there's any difference in my style, my composition, or what I do with the camera. These 5 pictures and plenty more are actually on my website, so stephenmartin.co.uk. I've got areas on there for the different pictures that I've taken for the different kind of subjects, as well as links to these YouTube videos and other bits and pieces that I've been doing. And on there, if you ever want to see any more of my work, it's all on there. This just means that I've got a bit more control over how they look. So rather than putting them all on Instagram or even Vero, it just makes it more in my control. I can look at what size they are, I can look at how compressed they are, and make sure that they're edited how I want them to be edited, rather than to fit a particular size on Instagram, for example. There's definitely a lot of talk about autofocus and whether Nikon is anywhere near as good as Sony and Canon. And for what I've been doing, it's been fine. As I've mentioned recently, there was the version 1.4 firmware update, which has improved the autofocus for video and apparently made it better for photos as well. And to be honest, I haven't seen a huge difference. I've not used a Sony, I've not used a Canon, so can't really compare. But for me, the main thing that I take pictures of are trees, views, water, and occasionally animals. So a lot of that doesn't actually require autofocus. I can focus on a hill, a tree, it's not going to move, it doesn't really bother me. When I'm taking pictures of the dogs, to be honest, it's not something I've particularly thought about. So it would be quite interesting if Sony wants to send me a camera to try out with taking pictures of the dogs, then I'd quite happily accept. But unless that happens, I'm not going to go out of my way to buy one and experiment. I'm quite happy with how the Nikon works. I think the main question is, why do I like this camera? A big part of it is that we've spent a long time together. We've grown a relationship. I can't speak for the camera, obviously, but I know the way that it works. I know where the buttons are. I know what dial does what. I know where in the menu system things are. And every day that has got slightly easier. So I don't think it matters what camera that you've got. As long as you spend time taking pictures, you go to different locations. So I've been to cities, the seaside, countryside, rivers, lakes, we've travelled abroad, and the main thing is just going into different situations and using your camera so that you actually build up this kind of muscle memory of where the dials are, where the switches are, which button does what, how you'll make your picture lighter or darker, whether you need to change your ISO or your shutter speed. And a lot of this is just practice. Whatever camera that you've got, just taking pictures is the best thing that you could possibly do. I've actually realized I love watching a YouTube video about cameras, reading articles about cameras, and just learning about other systems and things as well. And one thing that I've realized is that the Nikon actually has some features that aren't always there in other cameras. So you can charge it over USB. So at the moment I've got a USB-C cable plugged in and attached to a power bank so that it's charging up that way. You can use the entire touch screen. There's no limitations on what functions you can use on the touch screen on the back. You can use it to take pictures, you can use it to select things in the menu, change your ISO, shutter speed, and everything like that. So if you don't want to use the dials, or if you can't reach them, for example, then that's where that comes in really useful. So one thing that I've noticed is that when it's on a tripod and in a particular situation, so sometimes up above my head to take a slightly higher view, then I can't really reach the buttons to actually do anything with them. So being able to tilt the touch screen down and press everything on there and take the picture just using that makes life a lot easier. Using the Nikon SnapBridge app, you can control your camera from your phone using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And with the Wi-Fi one, you actually see what the camera sees. So you can see the picture, you can focus, you can adjust all of your settings, and then you can take your picture. So I've used that before for taking pictures of myself, but also if you can't reach your camera or you don't want to move it at all, it's easy to do. In terms of additional features, if I was going to buy a new camera today, what would I want? I've looked through the Nikon lineup, and obviously I want the Z9 because it's the best thing out there. But why? So maybe a bigger sensor would probably be the way forward. So like the Z9 and the Z7 II both have a 45 megapixel sensor, and that would allow me to crop in a bit more if I needed to get a bit more detail. But then the trade-off is that the performance in lower light isn't quite as good because of that bigger sensor size. So would I be missing out on something from the Z5 having that smaller sensor? I don't know. Maybe this is something that I can try in the future and find out. The other big thing is the burst rate between the Z5 and either like the Z6, the Z70. And that is something that, again, I've got about 4 frames a second, I think, on this one. My previous camera, the Fujifilm that I was using for a while, could do about 2 and then would soon run out of memory. So you couldn't actually take that many pictures. Whereas this one, I can easily hold my finger down and it will just keep taking pictures over and over again. And in there somewhere will be one that I like. Like I mentioned just now, you've got the tilting touchscreen on the back to be able to take pictures with it, focus and things like that. The only trouble is it only tilts up and down. It doesn't tilt side to side. Not easy to demonstrate. But that means that in some situations, particularly if I'm taking a vertical picture in portrait orientation, it makes things a bit more difficult and doesn't allow me to see as much as I'd want to see, and can be a bit awkward. So being able to tilt it in a slightly different orientation would definitely help. Those are kind of the big photo things that I would want if I was to upgrade, so nothing too exciting. From the video side of things, this can only shoot 4K with a bit of a crop, which does limit the size of the field that I can video. However, in my office, I've worked around it. So this shot is using my 35mm lens at f1.8, and I think it looks quite nice. Obviously any comments, suggestions, anything like that, leave them in the comments. But I think it looks quite good and it certainly gets my point across. I can easily talk to the camera, allows me to demonstrate things that I want to demonstrate. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is that when it comes to photos and even video, the lenses that you attach to your camera make a lot more of a difference, have a much bigger impact than the camera itself does. So you've got your camera, you've got your sensor size, you change your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture, which even aperture is dependent on the lens that you've got. After that, your camera is kind of redundant. It just takes the picture. The lens that you use will determine what's in the frame. So yes, you can walk around a bit, move forwards, move backwards to change your perspective on things, but there's no changing a 35mm lens into a 24mm lens. You need that particular lens in order to get that picture. The different focal lengths and the different apertures that are available in different lenses make the biggest difference, I think. So with Nikon, the Z mount, they've got more and more lenses as time goes by and keep adding to it. And at the moment they go from the, I think it's about £260 40mm f2, all the way through their range up to the 600mm f4, I think it is, which is about £15,000. And then you've got teleconverters and things like that. So you can actually have a range of, I think, 14 to 800mm on their normal lenses. And then with a teleconverter, you can extend that even further up to nearly 1200mm. So a huge range of focal lengths. So from focusing on something quite close with a big wide field of view, all the way out to something like wildlife that you want to be a bit further away from. There's a huge range. And even with mine, with this 24 to 200, I can still go all the way from 24mm, which looks like this, to 200mm, which looks like this. And as you can see, that is a huge difference. So having that flexibility in lenses is key. And that's the thing that will change your photography as much as possible. So looking at that, thinking about these different things, what am I going to do over the next 18 months? I think the number one thing is obviously just keep taking pictures. Take lots of photos, keep editing them, keep making videos, keep editing videos. Because that's the thing that's going to allow me to get even more familiar with my camera, with composition, with lighting, with all of these different aspects which go into photography and videos. I am a photographer first. I make these videos as an instructional thing, as a way of getting my knowledge out and helping teach myself as well. But photography is my first love, and that's what I kind of focus on when looking at a camera, looking at lenses and things like that. I do want to travel a bit further afield, explore some more of this country. So I live in the southeast of England, and there's a whole country that doesn't involve flying anywhere or anything like that. I can drive there, take the dogs and go and take some pictures. So I need to do a bit more of that over the next year, 18 months. And that is something that is definitely on my to-do list. Expose myself to different situations, different scenery, and see what I can do with my photography. I am tempted with a wider lens because, as I said, 24mm is as wide as I can go. I keep coming back to this 24 to 200 is such a flexible lens. It allows me to take so many different pictures and is quite often the only one that I will take out with me when I take my camera. Saying that, I would like to try a wider lens so that I can see what that's like and see how creatively that can change what I take pictures of. In terms of the video side of things, I am a bit tempted with the Z30, which has kind of recently come out. Because it is an APS-C sensor, so it is the DX format, which actually would work quite well with my 35mm lens. But the thing with that is that it's got a fully articulating screen. You can shoot 4K video without cropping in at all. So from the video side of things, that seems to have everything that I would need, and it's only a few £100, but I'd like to try one out before I actually commit to buying one, just to see how different it is to the Z5. Kind of in summary, I love this camera. I love how easy it is to just get out and take pictures. I like the files that come from it. And I've talked before about my workflow when I'm editing and things, but we'll look at that in a bit more detail in the future, and kind of file management, backups and all that kind of thing, which I've learnt is also equally important. So there's a lot more that I've learned over these last 18 months that I want to share with everyone so that you can benefit from my knowledge as well. And on that subject, what's the favourite thing about your camera? What's your favourite lens? Where do you like to go and take pictures? Leave these comments down below and we can have a bit of a chat about these kind of things. Other than that, I'm going to go out and take some pictures now. So I will see you again next week, and I just want to say thank you for joining me on my photography journey. And thank you for subscribing. I can't believe how many of you have subscribed to this. It really encourages me to keep on making these videos, so thank you. And I'll see you again next week. So have a great week. Bye.